Season 3, episode 5 had me on an emotional roller coaster. I was everything from angry about the town meeting, about people's reactions to Tabitha, all the way to sad about Victor's scenes. There were so many emotional things that happened in this episode, but also too, I feel like we're getting clues to answers, not quite the answers that we're looking for yet. So if you clicked on this video is going to be about everything you might have missed in this episode. Shout out to my first subscribers. Again, we're almost at our first 100 subscribers. I could have not guessed this reaction to my channel and to my content. I'm super thankful and super blessed. And I'm really happy that people are really messing with my content and my theories. So let's continue to make these happen. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And let's get right into this episode. Starting with, we were right about Dale. Let's get right into the juice of it. We were right about Dale. We knew that out of any of the characters from the town meeting who would end up making a risky decision, it would probably be Dale. I predicted in my last video, as well as many others, that Dale would end up being the person who went through a faraway tree and ended up in the pool. I also predicted that it'd be something weird, freaky, gory, any of the things and above. And that's exactly what we got. Something really weird and make your skin crawl. It was a really freaky scene, and it speaks to how demented the town really is. This town is nothing to play with. These faraway trees are nothing to play with. If you think you're gonna rewrite the rules and go out of bounds and do what you want and just hop in faraway trees like this town is just gonna listen to you, you have to think twice, which is something we are seeing throughout the entire show. Like I said, everything in this show is intentional. So although that this is just the story plot moving along, this is also intentionally to show us, the viewers, that all of these theories y'all are coming up with on Reddit about what you would do and not do, swords I've even seen was a theory, all these other things that you would do to kill the monsters, get out of the town, etc., etc. It's not that easy. Watch people like you who think they know what's going on, who are going to make the desperate human choices that we would make in the same situations, not come out the way we expect. Now let's actually talk about what specifically happened with Dale, because this will tell us a lot about more things, more rules we need to understand about the town. Now, a lot of people predicted that maybe Dale would go through any one of the faraway trees, which is why he would end up in the pool. However, we know now that no matter what, he went through the actual faraway tree that is also a bottle tree. We have to remember, right? There are bottle trees. So there are some trees that are simply just bottle trees. Remember the one that Boyd and Sarah saw when they went into the forest. There are also faraway trees that are simply faraway trees that will send you anywhere in the town, that are all around the forest in random places, in random areas that Victor has mapped out, and he has talked about how the trees are moving. Now, we also know now that there are special faraway bottle trees that are both bottle trees and faraway trees that are specifically special and can take you to predetermined places, but we don't know exactly how that works. We do know that Victor said earlier on in season 2, when he sent Tabitha through the faraway tree, that his mother said that this tree was special. She does not actually say that this tree only takes you to the lighthouse. She said that this tree was special and that it would take her to the lighthouse. We saw that it took Tabitha to the lighthouse, so we can go ahead and assume that a few things are happening here now that we see Dale go through the exact same tree and not end up at the lighthouse. I also have to point out that another scenario, we saw someone go through the faraway trees, which Boyd mentions in the town meeting, where Boyd and Sarah were in the forest and the storm came and they were looking for shelter, and the boy in white appears and he says that your brother was right, this place is now angry, you'll be safe in there, and he points out the faraway tree. We saw both Sarah and Boyd went into the same faraway tree and ended up in two completely different places. Sarah ended up back in the town, similar to how Julie in season 1 ended up back in the town when she went through the faraway tree. But Boyd, however, ended up somewhere completely else. So all of these scenarios tell me a couple different things, because we also know that Julie and Victor saw the boy in white before they went through that faraway tree and ended up in two different places. Julie ended up in the town and Victor ended up going into the tunnels underneath the town where the boy in white had him wait for Tabitha. Now, this tells me a couple different things. Number one, who is controlling where the faraway trees take you? It's obviously, to me, not quite the boy in white. And I believe that because when Boyd goes through the faraway tree, He clearly went somewhere that was not safe. So the boy in white assumed that you would end up somewhere safe by going through the faraway tree, but something else made boy go somewhere else. What is determining where these bottle trees take you? That is my question. Now, if I had to guess based off of things that I figured out, I'm wondering if that there's two opposing things happening in the town, two opposing entities, the boy in white obviously being a helpful, positive, maybe good entity, and potentially another opposing force. Is this the man in black that we're seeing in the image that Ethan had, or is this the man in yellow that we see in the paintings that Miranda has created? Now, I have a theory on who this man in yellow is that I will be making another video on shortly after this, so keep your eyes out for that. I have to point out that when Victor talks about how his mom went to this bottle tree and that's the day that she died and she was going towards the tower to go save the children, that we do know Eloise got out of the root cellar and she left. We know that Victor confirms for us that he found his mother's body, so his mother is dead. However, we do not know what happened to Eloise. Victor assumes that she's dead, but I don't believe that that's the case, at least that she did not die where Victor or the rest of us might assume that she died in this massacre. I believe that based off of how movies work, how writing tends to work, that Eloise left and she's the reason her mother died, unfortunately, because she found her mother on the way to the bottle tree. And the mom had to make a choice to save herself and go to the tower to save the children and save everyone else, or save her own child and send her child through the bottle tree. And we don't know where she ended up, but she might have at least ended up not dying right then and there while the monsters were probably chasing them through the forest. So that's what I believe happened, is that Eloise was the one to go through this bottle tree during the last cycle, and wherever she ended up, we have no idea. Maybe that's something we see in the future on what happened to Eloise and where she ended up after going through the bottle tree. But to me, that is the most likely logical outcome of the scenario, is that we're being shown people ending up in way different places throughout the throughout Fromville based off of traveling through a bottle tree, and Eloise is another version of the same scenario. Now, I want to skip ahead to when Jade and Tabitha are at the bottle tree and they're talking about what's going on with the bottle tree, right? So we finally see Jade and Tabitha are now collaborating even more about the things that they're seeing in the town and the things that they're figuring out. Jade talks about how he saw the children. Jade had finally seen the children in the tunnels underneath the town where the monsters are, but these children were on these stone tablets all in a circle. There are 7 of them, and above them was a hole in the ground that looked like the symbol. We now know that this bottle tree is somehow connected to these children, who are connected to the symbol, who are connected to everything that's going on in the town. Now, I want to point out that if the symbol we're seeing in the vision is exactly what we're supposed to be looking at, so these symbols that Jade is being sent are of this thing in the ground, literature and movies of when these trapped individuals, whether it be kids, women, children, ghosts, spirits, whatever it is, are sending images of a symbol, that there is a trope where this symbol is something that they saw when they died. I can't think of the movies off the top of my head, but I know I've seen this quite a few times before. Maybe you guys know what I'm talking about. Let me know in the comments. Like Jade also says in this scene where they're actually at the bottle tree, he talks about how everything is connected, we just don't know how. He mentions chaos theory, which is something he also mentioned all the way back in season 1, that everything seems unconnected until you find the pattern. And that is going to be the descriptor of this entire show. There's so many things, there's so much chaos, so many random things that seem so unconnected, yet they all are. They're all coming from this town, and this town is something, these monsters are something, it all means something. Now let's talk about the numbers that they find. Now, number 1, I want to point out that the original numbers that we know, the ones that are in the lighthouse, are very clearly resembling a bunch of different dates. However, you can also say that maybe these resemble different addresses. I don't believe that's where it's going to go. I hope it's something deeper like dates. I did mention a theory that I have, and I'm still going to post it, about all of these numbers being dates, what all the dates represent, and how they all not only tie back to different events in the town and how things are playing out, but also tie back to every single one of the monsters, the things that they're wearing, and every building in the town. It's all connected. and it all means something, that it's all coming together. However, because of the new information we get from this episode of this new number 2659, it throws a wrench in about every theory you've probably seen on YouTube. There's so many things now that are up in the air and for question now that we have these new numbers. So now we know that these numbers can literally be anything again. It's like we're getting more and more questions every time we get an episode and less answers. Similar to like how now we have more questions about the faraway trees, we have more questions about the bottle trees, and now we have more questions about the numbers or what they might be dates, but probably just numbers. I don't believe it's a future date, because if this was a future date, for example, and all of the numbers were reflections of different cycles in the town, then it would kind of be insinuating that they lose, right? That these people lose at the end of the show and the cycle continues for another 600 years. So I'm hoping that's not what the answer is here, that maybe these dates or these numbers are coordinates. Maybe some are dates and some are other things, right? Because we have seen a bunch of other numbers also be involved, 333, as we saw in the website for RENDEZ-MOVE. Now, RENDEZ-MOVE is the company of the trailer that Boyd has attached to his car when they drive into the town. It's also another fan catch, the name and the brand of the calendar that is in Donna's room. We also know that when Tabitha got out and she was talking to Victor's dad about who's missing in the town, there's an ad at the bottom of the page for this company. Now, this company's website is a real website that you can visit, and this website actually gives us some more clues. There's drawings that are attached to the website, and some people even got into the coding of the website and saw that the numbers that are in the website correlate with some of the numbers on the lighthouse. Only some, though, and that there's numbers we haven't seen also in this website. The numbers 3333 and other numbers and above. I'd like to point out in this drawing too, it looks like one of the shadowy figures is holding a wand at this house, and this house has the address of Victor's house at home. We also have seen an image Victor has drawn of similar figures coming after somebody hiding under a bed. Let me know what you guys think about this comparison. Now, I'm going to do a video specifically about numbers, so I'm going to leave more of that information for that video. But basically, numbers are everywhere. The numbers all resemble different things. We've got dates, we've got angel numbers, we've got addresses, we've got coordinates. It's so many different things. It's quite literally chaos. So I'll get back to that in another video, but basically there's a lot of things going on. Now let's get back to season 3, episode 5, because I could just keep going. So, which is why I need to make separate videos on all the different things that I've found. But let's get back to this specific episode. Tying of the loose ends. Kenny and all of them came back from the village, and they mentioned that there's something over there walking around. But I believe that this is a setup for the fact that Jade destroyed one of those talismans. So this thing that's walking around in the village is no longer walking around there. And we're going to see that pay off in the next couple of episodes. It might come to the town now that it can get out, or it might just elevate whatever's going on in the village. Now I want to go to the actual town meeting itself, where everyone was talking. The desperation that was making people make such irrational conclusions and decisions in this moment is what stood out to me the most, especially because a lot of the people who are sitting in this town meeting and sitting here and trying to get answers from Tabitha and figure out why nobody's doing anything are the very people who up until this point were the ones pushing the fact that we should just be happy where we are and worry about who we have here and not make any rash decisions. Specifically Ellis, when he talks to Boyd, this is really throwing me off and is going to really play into his character arc, in my opinion, is that your whole character arc was about how your father was too busy looking for answers, was too busy going out in the forest and pushing the envelope, and it led to your mother's death. It led to him potentially not being there for you, and now he asked you to do the same thing again, and you're more worried about your child, which that part makes sense. But now you turn around that you have this information that you would not have if it wasn't for Boyd and Tabitha and Jade looking for answers, and now all of a sudden it's nobody's looking for answers, nobody's trying to get people out of here. Like, that made me so angry. I don't know about you guys, but that part made me so angry. Like, all the people having the dumbest questions and talking over the most important parts, because we saw Victor's dad about to mention the fact that there's a bottle tree in the real world, but nobody's going to get that information because they're too busy talking about the things that don't matter. This is what really happens when then a bunch of people get involved and get in the mix. This is what happens when people who don't really know everything are running with the first thing that they hear. Like, that does not help anyone, which is why a lot of the things that are happening are secluded to the people who are finding things out, the people who are a little bit more rational in the town. It all goes down to who really has true survival instincts, who really understands the things that are going on around them. And on our side as viewers, what we're actually understanding and interpreting about the things that are going on in the town and the things that would not make sense, even though hindsight is 2020 and you can talk about all the things you would and would not do. It's hindsight at the end of the day. What you would really do in these situations is probably what these characters are actually doing. The tangent on Tabitha not going to the police, not looking for help. Nobody would have believed her, not even for a second. The only reason Victor's dad believed her is because Victor's dad heard her say the words that Miranda said before Miranda disappeared. No one else would have believed them. And even if they did, what are they going to do? What are the police, the government, whatever you want to talk about, gonna do about some random magical dreamscape with monsters in it that has complete control over what's going on? They're not doing anything. That's why I have numerous Marines, Army veterans, police officers ending up in this town doing what? Nothing, because this town is more powerful than y'all are giving it credit for. Humans are not as in control as you are trying to give them credit for. So let's watch this show and start understanding what's really going on and how we can actually get out around what's really going on. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the Julie and Elgin scene, because this scene is going to be a lot more important than people even realize. We have Julie and Elgin running into each other and they decide to get high together, but I want to start off with the fact that Julie and Elgin are opening up to each other about what's really going on. Elgin talks about his drowned lady dreams and how this lady keeps appearing to him, but he thinks that she's looking for help. I saw a lot of people mention how when she tried to quote unquote drown Elgin, that it was actually to wake him up, which I actually believe, because he saw the music box at the exact same time. As we know later on, the music box was appearing in people's dreams and murdering them through that way, and that this lady saved him from the music box so that she could continue to use him for whatever she needs help with, right? Let's talk about this specific dialogue about how Elgin talks about his grandmother would consider what he's been seeing as an angel. People were afraid of Gabriel too. She would tell me that this is an angel calling out to me. And they mentioned how Elgin is really deeply studied in the Bible. Julie calls him, okay, Mr. Bible Study, right? This is all paying off. I have to make a whole nother video again on where I'm about to go with this, right? But Elgin has really deep roots in the church through his grandmother, through his upbringing. Elgin is a great example of a young boy who grew up in a church family. He's mentioned this multiple times before, just like when he went into the church with Sarah in season 2. He has a lot of deep roots and a lot of knowledge about the Bible, Christianity, his grandmother and their connection. They also used to make things together. His shirt is not a coincidence. It is a crow on a red background with a yellow outline. All of these things mean something. Now, I have to point out that we also got told to us in season 1 that there are no Bibles in Fromville. This is intentional. This is an intentional detail. Now, we also hear Julie talk about how she hears screams all day and the only thing that stops them is smoking the weed. And she basically goes on to insinuate that this place that we're in is about our suffering. Is she insinuating that this place that they're in is purgatory? Is that why there are no Bibles in this town? Why is there so much Christianity and religious imagery across the entire show? We have the church in the town. I have a theory. It ties back to my dates. It ties back to all the things I'm telling you right now of what is going on in the town and how it's all related to the Bible, and that this place, Fromville, and the TV show From, is like an analogy on what happens when you force religion on people. That is something that has been core to the history of America, core to what I believe is happening in the story and what happened to the original people in this town and what all the dates relate to. It's a lot. Try to keep with me. I'll make a separate video on this theory, obviously, because we're talking about only this episode right now. But stay with me. There's something going on that's religion oriented. Now, we also see them go into the basement of Colony House, which we have never been in before. And a lot of people have also pointed out too, which I also noticed as well, that there's a stone arc in Miranda's drawings that looks exactly like the basement in Colony House. When they're in this room, we find out that there's this room full of things that basically look like costumes. It's very periodic, like there's all these clothes and things. Is it far-fetched to believe that the monsters themselves would have access to something similar? Now, I want to point out that people around with the concept that all these monsters had on 70s type wear, that was proof that they were all from the last cycle. But unfortunately, all of that has been debunked, including with this intentional writing to show you what real 80s gear actually looks like, and that if any of the monsters in the town were actually supposed to look like they were from the 80s, they would look a lot different than they do right now. So they aren't actually from the 1978 cycle. I even did my own research and I figured out that a lot of things that the people are wearing, the monsters are wearing, actually is not specific to any specific date. Some things are the 20s, some things are the 1900s, and so forth. So this can basically prove that all of these monsters could be from any time period that we've seen, especially of any of the dates in the lighthouse. Victor's confirmed for us that pre his cycle, these monsters were all here before he even got here, before anybody got here. The town has been like this for longer than even Victor's been here, that these monsters have also always been here before that. And that I believe because of our misinformed idea of what old clothes looks like, and not actually understanding the intense historical context of where a lot of these clothes come from, we all believe that, oh, old clothes means the last cycle, the 70s, because we've seen some of these clothes before. But all these clothes are actually a lot older than the 70s. Things the monsters are wearing are actually older than the 70s. So therefore, it debunks this whole theory that all these monsters come from Victor's cycle. And jumping off of that really quickly to talk about a couple other things I've noticed when it comes to theories about this show, is that this show is directly expecting us to go figure out the true origins of things that we know of since before. So a good example of this is like what the monsters are. A lot of people have been throwing around a bunch of different things, but the only valid theories about what the monsters are, whether they're fae, whether they're wendigo, whether they're vampires, requires you to have real knowledge on the origin of those folklores. I keep saying the name origin for a reason. These clothes, it requires you to actually understand the origin of a lot of the clothes the monsters are wearing. You have to understand the origin of some of the buildings in Fromville, and the list goes on and on. They expect us to know where things really come from. Now, if you're not familiar, obviously the name of the show is From, but the foreign interpretation of the name of the show is actually Origin. So that tells us a lot more about what might be going on in this show, and opens up the doors for a potential theory that I've been playing with, toying at mentally, of if this show is simply built off of a bunch of different lores, concepts, ideas, historical events from America, and it is expecting us to look at the origin of everything. That could be a really interesting theory. Let me know if you guys want a video. But I want to point out that this camera that Julie finds, I believe, is going to be a new hint for us, because although, yes, maybe the monster is behind them in the pictures, etc., the more obvious thing that you could probably guess, where have we seen this camera be used before? It has to be the same Polaroid camera that was used to take the picture of Christopher that we saw Victor behind. So who owned this camera? What other pictures has it taken? Where are all those other pictures that it took? And who is this person that's related to this camera? That's my question. Who took the picture of Christopher? Now we finally get some progression in the Fatima and Ellis storyline, because after they were ready to crash out about getting out of town, which I believe is rooted to their fact that they're more desperate now than ever, now that there's a baby involved, we finally see that Fatima is ready to tell Ellis what is going on. Now this is going to develop in later episodes of the season, which might culminate to some really unfortunate things happening to some of these characters. I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but I've seen a synopsis that might be directly related to this. But she's finally opening up to Ellis about the fact that the only thing she's actually been eating is the rotten vegetables. She did not open up about the blood yet. We'll see if she actually opens up about that part. I actually highly doubt it because that's disgusting. But I believe that at least she's telling them that she believes something is wrong with the baby. And then we're going to start to try to get more people looking for more answers when it comes to Fatima and her child. Past the bottle trees, past Tabitha being back, past everybody talking to each other, past Dale getting killed, and past Victor and his dad finally getting back to each other. There's not much more that happens in this episode. However, I do want to talk about that Donna and Tilly are really suspicious to me. And now that I've done a rewatch of most of season 1 and now I'm into season 2 at this point, Donna and Tilly are more suspicious than I think people even realize. So number one thing that stands out to me about both of them, Donna's been here longer than anyone else next to Victor. She's been here almost 4 years compared to Victor's 47, and everybody else is more under a year or so, maybe 2, of having survived the town. She was here pre-Boyd and pre the Talismans. She tells us the story of how she got here with her sister, but something else stands out to me. You've been here for this long and you're telling me you never figured out anything else. There's nothing else weird that you might have seen. I believe she's seen something she's not saying. That is why whenever somebody is looking for answers, whenever something else happens, she is ready to crash out because she has seen something she's not telling people. I believe she knows more about the town than she's saying. The same thing goes for Tilly. She's confirmed for us that she knew about this town before she got here, that she was told about this town through the tarot cards. But what else was she told about? Her cancer. Why would she have known about the cancer and the town through the tarot cards? What does that mean for her? As well as when she first got to town, a lot of people were glazing over the fact that she confirmed herself that she was doing a rain dance when she got into town, which means that she has roots to this town. She understands what's going on. She understands more about what's going on than she's letting on, evidenced by how she acts in the first episode when she gets here. She is quick to listen, quick to do things when she's asked, quick to listen to Donna, and her and Donna exchange words throughout the earlier seasons in the most random ways that kind of alludes to me that they both know more than what they're letting on, and that they're somehow also potentially related to each other, or knowing that each other is related to this town somehow, and that they all know more than they're saying. To finish this off, that Tilly talked about having 7 grandchildren, and we know that there are 7 children that are tied to the visions that Jade and Tabitha are seeing. There's 7 children, and to me, this sounds like when you hear in tropes in other movies, it's about how when somebody adopts the children of something that's going on, so they consider them their 7 grandchildren because they're so involved and so religiously and emotionally connected to whatever's going on. They consider whatever these children of this thing are their grandchildren. I believe that's what is really going on here, is that the 7 children we saw sacrificed, Tilly knows about them and she's calling them her 7 grandchildren. Think about also the 7 people she had in the prayer circle in season 2. This is all not a coincidence. She knows more than she's saying. Is she a mole? Is her and Donna moles? I don't know if I'm ready to go that far. I just believe that they're both people who knew about this town before they got here, and they're more attached to being here and what's going on here than they are ready to leave or go home. I'll keep an eye out more for this. I'll definitely do a separate video on Donna and Tilly as well. But that's it for season 3, episode 5. Let me know what you guys think. Did I miss anything that you would like me to talk about? But I feel like this was more tying loose ends and getting some things set up for more answers and more things to happen in the next couple episodes. Hopefully we get some solid answers by the end of this season. I also want to point out that this show is done. The story is actually finished. There is 5 seasons of this show confirmed, and all 5 seasons have finished being filmed. So the writers are done. They've written everything that they need to write down. Their story is considered finished. So I wonder how this all ends. Let me know what you guys think. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.